she and I didn't get along. Therefore, we shouldn't be married anymore. But that doesn't mean we need to be enemies, right? What was. I will respect the marriage and what we had, because it's very important to respect and say, whatever it was that I had, it was good during those times. Just because I'm angry now, just because it doesn't work now, doesn't mean that I need to scratch and erase all the memories and all the good times we had together, because that's what we do, right? We just want to erase it, get it out of our minds, no more memories, take out the pictures, throw out the mattresses, get rid of the sheets. We go crazy. We paint the walls because it reminds us of the person. We really go crazy. But the thing is, if you just realize it was what it was good for the time. Now I'm a different person. I want to move on with my life. I want different things. Then you're already divorcing with maturity.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to episode 29 of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. Today we're joined by Ravit Rose. She's an author, mentor, and divorce coach, also the founder of Divorce by Ravit. Ravit, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we always like to start off our conversation by asking, who is Ravit Rose?
Okay, so I'm a mom of two teenage boys. I got divorced 10 years ago, thought it was going to be really easy, and it turned out to be extremely litigious. For about 8 years, I was going around in circles and circles and circles and circles. I spent over $80,000 in legal fees, and I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't even make ends meet and try to understand what was the real cause of all this constant going to court and all that. And I had another business, not the one that I have now. I had another one with an ex-uncle of mine. And he, after a couple of years of me working it, he stole the business from me. And he left me out like a stray dog in the woods and just stole everything from me. And I was in my early 40s having to start my life all over again. So here I was, got divorced, lost everything. Went through years and years of craziness, just trying to survive and just get by, day by day. Then I managed to start a business and that gets stolen from me and everything gets taken away again. So I got into a really big depression and I didn't know what was going on. I questioned myself. I questioned God. I questioned life. I questioned the universe. I was like, why me? What on earth did I do to deserve this? Am I a bad person? Did I hurt somebody? Did I do something bad? And at the time, one of my employees had said to me in the business before it shut down, and he says to me, Ravi, you seem a little bit different lately. What is it about you? And I said, I don't know, not really anything. It's just I'm the same person. He says, no, you're a very different person. I said, honestly, the only thing I'm doing recently is I'm journaling. He says, what are you journaling about? And I said, everything that's in here is being purged onto a piece of paper. I'm just letting everything out. I said, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I know I'm talking about my ex and my divorce. So he says, let me read it. I'm like, are you crazy? No way. That's like trash talk. No one wants to see that. And I said, in any case, you're going to quit your job. So there's no way that I'm going to let you quit your job. He says, I'm not going to quit my job. I've been on the radio for over 40 years. Trust me, I know something when I see something. I'm like, you're nuts. And he kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. I'm like, okay, fine, take it. And I said, but don't quit your job. So he came back to me 2 weeks later and he says, Ravit, my dear, you've got yourself a book. I was like, no, I don't. I don't write books. I come from a business background. We don't write books. We write marketing business plans. That's like 2-3 sentences at a time. We don't write chapters and big stories. He says, trust me, you have yourself a book. You have a story the world needs to hear. Anyways, I'd ignored him. And actually, that's my book right there, Unwanted Nasty Divorce. So when the business closed, he came over and he says to me, well, you've got all this time on your hands now, so why don't you go back and write that book? And honestly, it was the best thing that I'd ever done. And the reason is because I had no idea what I was doing in my life. I was so lost and confused. I was having such a hard time getting by day, and I was just I felt belittled. I felt like I was this big, like I was non-existent to this world. And by writing the book and talking to other parents and researching and really trying to figure out, why is there such a thing as nasty divorces? How is it that all of us are falling into the same trap? How is it possible that we all come from different backgrounds and different stories and, different, salary grades and socioeconomic background, and we're still falling into the same model? How does that make sense? And it was through a lot of research that I finally figured out that nasty divorces, is nothing but a game. And if you don't know how to play the game, you're at odds. If you don't know how to play the game, you're the one who pays the $80,000 legal fees or the $100,000 legal fees and end up broken. Why? Because you just don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know is how to divorce. So it's like I always say, we don't know how to marry, and we certainly don't know how to divorce either. So we kind of just follow what everyone else does, and everyone says, get the sharkiest, craziest lawyer, and screw him and screw her and take this and take that, and everything is all emotional. And then I realized that no one even knows what they're doing, and that's why we're all doing the same thing the wrong way. And so that's what kind of led me to become a divorce coach, became a divorce mentor, created a program with professionals from different industries. So I was working with real estate agents and financial advisors and mediators and social workers. And we're trying to figure out, how do we make this work? How do we make a model work where parents don't have to spend crazy amounts of money, lose their kids' college fund, and dump everything to legal fees and be left with nothing, like starting from scratch in your age of 40s and 50s and sometimes even 60s, which is crazy. So I put it all together, and I was doing it really in Montreal at the very beginning. And then I was like, this is crazy. Like, there's no reason for me to be staying just in Montreal, because this is information that's valuable to any parent around the world, because we don't touch the legal stuff. So for all the legal stuff, we refer them to a third party. And that third party that works with all Americans and all Canadians. So what we did was I created an online course, and I took everything that I was doing, the whole model, and I put it online. And then when COVID hit, I was, just about starting to promote the online courses and all that. And I always had this like vision beyond my vision, like this idea of having a community and an app. But I always thought it was going to be later. Like I thought it was going to be like in 2 years or 3 years. But when COVID hit, I kept having this feeling like, should I launch this community? What should I do? And then I'm seeing what's happening in the world, and people are stuck and they're indoors and they can't really talk to anyone. And I know what it's like when you're trying to keep a secret and you can't go on Facebook, and the world does not need to know what your private situation is. And you need a place to just be anonymous and just talk and get advice and just feel like you can get things off your chest without being judged or without worrying that your ex-mother-in-law or your mother-in-law is going to find out and start a whole story, right? So that's why I decided to actually launch the Divorced by Rose community. And so it's in the form of an app that's all top secret. So it's really easy to get into and to find and for you. And also it allows parents to remain completely anonymous. So parents are going in and signing in as Bubbly Snowflake, as Tom Cruise, as Beautiful Sunshine, whatever crazy fun name that they're coming up with. And so that's my purposeful passion, and that's how I got to where I am today.
So when did you start in this field, this line of work?
So it was about 6 years ago.
Okay.
Once I launched the book, yeah.
Okay. And with the app, I mean, it makes so much sense because I've never gone through this, but I know that it's so overwhelming, right? And the information you're going to get from a lawyer is going to be different than the information you get from your mom or friends or somebody else who's gone through divorce, right? So it's very helpful. Now, on the app, is it like there's courses? You said that, but like what else is on there?
So this community, the Divorced by Rose community, brings together two communities. You've got the parents who are contemplating divorce and newly separated, with experts, coaches, and professionals who have the tools, strategies, wisdom, experience, and knowledge to help these parents. So the parents have questions, and the coaches and experts that we've carefully selected have the answers. So we're bringing them together in an environment where otherwise they would never even meet. So if you think about, if a parent is thinking about getting divorced or is newly separated and is looking for information, their only option is to go on Google and try to do a search, and hopefully they'll land on some great information. But we know as coaches that you don't land on great information. And the bottom line is that they're not finding the resources that they're looking for. So Divorce by Rose answers that. So parents have a lot of questions and concerns and worries. What's my next step? What should I do? What should I not do? I'm overwhelmed. I can't sleep at night. I'm worried about the kids. I'm worried about my finances. And there's all these different areas of their life that have this giant question mark next to it. And they have no idea where to start and where to go. So in our community, what happens is that let's say they're asking questions, like a social networking platform, kind of like Facebook. So you're posting questions. The coaches are answering and parents are answering. And because the parents are remaining anonymous, everyone feels very comfortable and you get real, raw, authentic conversations because no one's really worried that someone is going to find out about them, right? So the parents are answering, the coaches are answering. Now, if you like something that a coach is saying, or there's something in particular you want to learn more about, then those coaches have all created online courses in the community. And so they're all under $100, so super affordable. They're small bite-sized courses, like about 90 minutes long, broken down into 10-minute increments. And the reason we did that is because parents don't have time for more than 10 minutes. I mean, I'm a mom of two, my kids are older, and I still don't have time. And I don't have the bandwidth or the patience to be sitting and watching an hour and a half in a row. So we broke it down, we made sense of it. So let's say you're at home and you're with your husband or you're with your wife or your partner, and you don't have time because they're right next to you, they're working next to you and all that. You can break this down into 10 minutes. So that means you could go for a quick walk, right? Or walk the dog and watch a segment. You can take the kids to school and on the way back, watch another segment. He can be out for a walk and you're taking a bath and watch another segment. So it makes it very easy. Now, the whole idea here is that it answers questions. It answers the typical thoughts that parents are going through when they're in this world of overwhelm. So you could get online courses, you can chat and engage with other parents, and you could DM each other. There's tons of support that you get on a regular basis. So as opposed to being on Facebook where everyone just randomly throws in their, worst paradigms and all their worst fears and gives you like all these paranoias, you're actually in an environment where it's positive, it's uplifting, we're helping you find solutions to help you move forward with life.
I'm just wondering if we can unpack something that you said earlier when you were just talking about people who are going through a divorce, and you said we don't know what we don't know. Could you unpack some of the common misconceptions that you see that people struggle with during a divorce?
Absolutely. So the first common misconception is I got to get myself the sharkiest, craziest, most badass lawyer ever. And that is probably the worst thing you can do. And the reason is because you're already starting off with a retaliation mode. You're starting off with like a revolution. If nothing has really happened yet, the first thing that you should do is focus on yourself. And it's like anything you do in life. Focus on yourself, look inside and see, is this my fault? Is there something that I could do better? What do I want from my divorce? How do I want, my divorce to look like? What's the destiny that I want? What is the legacy I want to leave behind? How do I want my kids to feel? Like those are the most important questions to look at first. And once you've kind of defined how you want this divorce to look like, then you plan your next step. And your next step, go to mediation, go to collaborative law, go to a lawyer and litigate, but at least you've done your initial thought. You haven't just like skipped all the most important stuff, gone to a litigation lawyer and start to throw out motions and start the battles. Because once you start a battle and once you start to go to court, there is no just stopping it. It's not like a ceasefire, it just stops. It doesn't. And the reason is because, and this is what one misconception people have. They say, well, as long as I go to court and if I win, then I'll stop. But the thing is that when you win, the other one loses. And the loser is always going to want to come back and retaliate. Why? Because he doesn't want to be the loser. So he comes back and then you become the loser and then you want to go back. So it's always this like butting of heads, right? So that's one of the biggest misconceptions that you should run to a litigation attorney and start off your proceedings right away. Maybe in some cases that is the right thing to do, but we help parents who are contemplating divorce. That means if you're thinking about it, you still have time. And if you have time, you need to sort of do a little bit more work to identify like this puzzle. So I kind of say that your divorce is like a puzzle. So every piece of the puzzle represents a different part of your life. You've got your work, your career, your role as a mother or father, your finances, your hobbies, and all the different parts of your life. In order to see this picture of the puzzle, every single part of your life has to fit together. And if it doesn't fit together, you end up broken. So if you focus on all these things from the very beginning, then, and you have a very clear picture where you want to go, and you've got goals, and you know where you want to get to, and you know what you want, you know what you don't want, you'll have an easier divorce.
Right. And I guess a lot of people probably don't have that foresight to think about what the impact of the retaliation, that adversarial mindset, how it's going to impact, well, especially we're talking about parents, their children.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people say, well, I'm going to spend $10,000 and I'm going to stop. And I said, who says you're going to be able to stop? They're like, no, but my lawyer told me it's going to cost me $10,000. I said, and what if it costs you more? Oh, no, it won't. So we believe, like, we kind of like, there's something called cyclosclerosis. And basically what it is that you believe your stories so much that you make them true. But the reality is that there is a pattern out there, and there's a reason why there's nasty divorces. Everyone who's gone to court and spent the $80,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 or crazy amounts have all said the same thing. I'm just going to go once and then I'm going to stop. But they don't realize once you open Pandora's box, there is no shutting it. It's both of you have to want to shut it. But usually when you have losers in the situation, people that have lost, there's always going to be that retaliation. So you can't close it.
Yeah. And I guess the only real winners are the lawyers at the end of the day.
Yes, we make them very rich.
Oh man, it's interesting. Like, obviously divorce separation is always there, but during COVID, it's increased. I don't know the numbers. I just even know, from seeing socially and, family, friends, church, just so many things, right? And, I'm sure there were a lot of underlying issues going on, but then COVID and being maybe stuck at home, or just even more time to think and evaluate what it is people want, there's been separation and things like that. And that's why I really wanted you to come on, because I think right now, especially, there is that extra time that people have. So you talk about contemplating that separation and divorce. This is a time where people really can evaluate what it is that they either want, what are they able to settle with if you are going to stay in a relationship, or, what are those next steps, right? Now, it's true. It's not just something you jump into, and you talk about that and like planning it out. So I saw that you talk about 5 key strategies. Could you share those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start off by saying that before COVID, the divorce rate was at about 50% across US, Canada. And now it's well over 70%.
Wow.
So 7 out of 10 are getting divorced, and the other 3 out of 10 are probably thinking about it. There's and COVID did not make it any easier. And one of the biggest reasons is because COVID made you really look inside yourself and really evaluate yourself. You had a lot of time to think, you had a lot of time to stop. And we lived in a very go world. We were always rushing and moving and going from one thing to the next, and the kids and the work and this and that. And then COVID just made you like just to stop and pause. So a lot of it is people reflecting about who they are, where they're at, and what do they want in their lives. And one of the biggest issues that there are, and it's one of the key strategies to divorcing the right way and avoiding a nasty divorce, is understanding that the 2 parents always have to stay on the same path. And when one is more evolved or working differently or just has a different focus than the other one, so one is forward and one's lagging behind, there's always going to be this disconnect. And what happened with COVID is that a lot of people realize, like, oh my God, I'm here, you're here, I want to move forward and do things, you don't. And so therefore we don't get along anymore, right? So one of the things that I always talk about is even throughout marriage, and this is for parents who are really contemplating or even just have the thought in their mind, right? One of the most important things is that you need to have a very clear set marriage goals. You need to make sure you're aligned. You got to work together just like a business Just like any other, your work, you have goals, you have performance reviews, all that. It's the same thing. Your marriage has to be something you look at on a regular basis, and you need to make sure you're aligned. And when you're not aligned, you're always going to have this discrepancy that's going to cause friction. So that's one of the strategies. The second strategy, which people don't even realize, and I didn't either, is that when you're going into divorce, you're going from a relationship of husband and wife to mother and father. These two relationships are polar opposites. Husband and wife are together. You end up in the same room or in the same bed, hopefully, and the same house at the end of the day. Mother and father is two different worlds. It's kind of like a boxing ring. You're hoping, like you're kind of eyeing down the opponent, ready to battle and punch and kick and break and do all of that. It's two different worlds. So your relationship as husband and wife is morphing into one of mother and father, but you don't even know how to do that. And the reason is we don't know how to do that because all we know is what we know. So we went from boyfriend and girlfriend and we adapted into then becoming husband and wife or partners or whatever it is, even if you're not married. So you adapted from one to the next, but you were always adapting together. You were always united. You were always one. Here, you have to adapt in two different opposite ends of the world. Everybody wants what they want. Egos are flaring. Emotions are flaring. And you guys have to get along. And everybody says you got to co-parent. You got to coexist. You have to communicate. So what I say is you actually have to co-create. Co-create your new lives. Because co-parenting just sounds so crazy, because how can two people who are not even on the same path, how can they co-parent? Very hard. But you could co-create. It means I'm going to create my life, you're going to create your life, and the kids are going to walk with us down the path. So that's the second strategy that parents don't think about. The third one is that you have to look at divorce in the way that you have to look at divorce as your opportunity to recreate your new life. So you get to reorganize it. You get to rebuild it from scratch so that you can get to the point of co-ing it all together, communicating, co-parenting, co-creating. Once you start looking at divorce as saying, listen, she and I didn't get along, therefore we shouldn't be married anymore, but that doesn't mean we need to be enemies, right? What was, I will respect the marriage and what we had, because it's very important to respect and say, whatever was that I had, it was good during those times. Just because I'm angry now, just because it doesn't work now, doesn't mean that I need to scratch and erase all the memories and all the good times we had together, because that's what we do, right? We just want to erase it, get it out of our minds, no more memories, take out the pictures, throw out the mattresses, get rid of the sheets. We go crazy. We paint the walls because it reminds us of the person. We really go crazy. But the thing is, if you just realize it was what it was good for the time. Now I'm a different person. I want to move on with my life. I want different things. Then you're already divorcing with maturity. And when you're going with maturity and when you're starting to think of things in a very different light, you're going to show up differently. And if you show up differently, your conversations are going to show up differently. That means that egos are not going to flare because there is no ego here. It's about, I just don't feel it anymore. I need to go on with my life. You don't feel it. I know you don't feel it. You go on with your life and let's just figure out how to make this work for the kids. So you're not trying to attack each other. You're not trying to break each other. You're not trying to focus on what I call the fourth strategy, which is ego, power, and money. When your divorce is about ego, power, and money, you're doomed. You're doomed to fail. There's nothing good that's going to come out of it. You're going to fight and fight and fight and fight. You're going to suffer from cyclosclerosis, plus a lot of other things and gray hairs and stress, and you're going to end up in the hospital, and lots of things are going to happen to you because you're just going to be so focused on the negative and so focused on the worst part of, trying to destroy each other rather than rebuilding your life. And then the last one is that there's the 4 Ds. When you divorce and you make a decision based out of desperation, denial, or despair, you will with 100% certainty come back and regret it. Hands down. It's always like that. So a lot of people hire the shark lawyer, make rational decisions, all emotional, don't know where they want to go, what they want to do. And then all of a sudden make a decision, come back in one day and say, oh, I made the biggest mistake in the world. Why did I do that? And I lost $50,000 and I didn't know no one told me. And what do? They go back to court and they start the cycle all over again. So people have to understand how this works. So once you understand how the game works and the cycle of all of this, then you start to look at it from a more mature standpoint and say, hold on a second. This is happening to everyone. No one is privy to it. It's not like just because my hair is blonde and I wear blue shirts that all of a sudden I'm going to be untouched. It happens to everyone. It's just the way it is. So if you don't want it to happen to you, you have to learn how to divorce. You have to learn how to move on with your life. And that's the 5 key strategies. So in the course that I have in Divorced by Rose, I go a lot deeper into this. And there's really a lot of points of reflection that get you thinking like out of the box. The whole idea here is I want you to look at your life and your divorce from like a bird's eye view, top down. Don't look at it from emotions. He did this, he didn't take out the garbage, and she's crazy, and he's this, and the mother-in-law, and this. No, none of that stuff. Look at your divorce top down. Look at it from the most important points. And once you look at it, I promise you all these little stories and all these things that happen won't matter as much. And that's what you want. You don't want these things to matter. You want to just take it and say, we don't have to stay married the rest of our lives. If it didn't work, it didn't work. We changed, we evolved, we're different. We're not the same person we were in our 20s, 30s, and 40s. And now we're in our 50s and we're not the same people. And it's okay. And you move on.
It's that emotion, right? When you just said that, I'm like, ugh. People, just from what I've seen, and I used to work at Children's Aid, and I did domestic violence and custody and access. And I would see the number and I'm like, oh, do I want to answer? Because they would be calling, you talk about, Sally in the pink shoes and the grilled cheese, right? Like they would be calling over such minor things. And you would have to stop them and say, is your child in danger? Is your child safe, healthy, okay? Then you got to figure this out, right? Because it's the emotion that comes. And then you talked about that co-create. I've never heard it like that. So I heard co-parenting all the time. I used to preach that, as a worker, right? Like, let's try to co-parent here, but it's that co-create. So really, I guess from what I understood is you're now focusing on yourself first and figuring out, okay, yes, I'm a parent, but figuring out how you want to move forward. Yeah. And then with that, then, the parenting and everything else, having conversations with your ex and all that, I guess, would evolve.
So I have another course that's called Logically Planning Your Divorce. It is probably the smartest course that has ever been created. And I don't say that because I've created it. It's because it gets you looking at your divorce in a way that no one will help you do. So if you're contemplating divorce, you're thinking, I want full custody. I want all the money. I want the house, right? Because you're like so scared that you're going to end up eating cans of tuna, and that you're going to be broke, and you're not going to have enough money to make it ends meet at the end of the month. So you're like, I want everything. But when we look at it from, again, a bird's eye view, we start realizing, well, can you actually handle full custody? Can you handle this? Because it's not just saying, I want the kids full time and the other parent is not allowed to have them. You have to understand that there's consequences that are attached to that. Your whole life is attached to that. You're going to lose a lot. There's going to be a lot of trial and errors. There's going to be a lot of suffering that comes to that because there's a lot of responsibility to be a one-man show. So we talk a lot about look at your divorce from a different perspective. Take the time to just be methodical. Think logically. Remove your emotions, detach them right now. Let's just be logical. And let's remove you from the stories, from the sagas, from the dramas, and let's just think and do a mock-up divorce. So if you do a mock-up, and this happens to a lot of parents, they do the mock-up and they have this initial thought, and they think that, okay, it's gonna be this, and that. And then when I do the mock-up with them and we plan this out, they go, oh my God, Ravit, you're right. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about that. I had no idea that was gonna come. And I said, yeah. So if you would have gone your way, you would have spent $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in legal fees to then wake up one day and realize what I just showed you now. So I just saved you 5 years of your life, a whole load of money that should be going to you and your kids, and maybe a nice vacation one day, right? And you just made a lawyer very rich because you decided to argue over Sally's pink shoes and grilled cheese sandwiches, which is really important to mention because the stories just never end. Like the story about the grilled cheese sandwiches is that, a dad gives his kids a grilled cheese sandwich on white bread, but the mother is used to giving the kids grilled cheese sandwiches on whole wheat bread. So they decide to go to the lawyers and let the lawyers battle it out because I want white bread and you gave whole wheat bread, or vice versa, whatever it is, right? And the whole point is that that just cost $1,000 for a slice, 2 slices of bread and a slice of cheese. How does that make any sense?
Right.
Or I forgot to give you Sally's pink shoes. So we're going to argue in court or through lawyers, have them battle over a pair of $20 shoes. By the time it's said and done, after the money you spent and the money I spent, we could have bought Sally about 1,000 pairs of shoes. It sounds so crazy, but we're too emotional. So the whole purpose here is remove yourselves from the emotions. Be logical, be methodical, and then if you decide and realize that it's really crazy to get divorced, great. You're going to have a newfound appreciation for your marriage. And it's going to start better conversations, right? The kind of conversations that both of you don't want to go to because you don't want to end up being divorced. So it really opens you up to that. If you do the exercise and then you say, you know what, I'm ready for divorce, but I'm not ready right now. I'm not ready financially. I'm not ready physically. I'm about to go into surgery. I'm about to give birth. I just gave birth, like whatever the situation is. At least you know you're calming down. So what does that mean? You're going to fight less and you're going to argue less over the minute, stupid stories and the garbage and the you didn't close the light and your clothes are on the floor and all those things, because you're going to realize that the other side of the grass is not going to be greener. And so you fight less because you just don't want to pick those battles that are going to lead you to the place that you don't want to go to anyways. And the third is, if you do the exercise and you realize, you know what, I'm done. I'm finished. I think I'm out. It doesn't make any sense. This is methodical. It makes sense. And you take your next steps from the place of, I want to make sure you and I, both parents, are going to be doing things properly. I'm not trying to screw you over. Don't screw me over. Let's just do things in a way where we respect one another so that you go on with your life on your path. I go on my life and my path, and the kids follow us. Because again, you can't have one lagging behind and thinking of yesterday and fighting over yesterday and the other one's moving forward towards their goal. Because that is that big discrepancy that causes problems forever. So the two of you have to have a plan. Say, my plan is to go my life, you go your life. Let's just make sure we're always moving forward. And then everybody has a happy life.
So I guess it's a good way to summarize is to kind of to share that the intent with the app isn't necessarily for people to get a divorce, but to make sure that they make an informed decision. And if they do decide to go that route, they know what they're getting into versus whether they decide to stay together. They know what the challenges are going to be there.
Exactly. We're not pressuring people to get divorced. We're not pressuring them to not get divorced. We're literally just a bunch of coaches, experts, and professionals in different areas who are offering you a whole ton of information and wisdom and knowledge to help you make the decision. Should I stay or should I go?
Right. And I mean, just in wrapping up, I think it's so important in every life situation to really draw things out. So even when you're looking at getting married, it's not just, okay, let's get married. Like you said, the goals and the planning and like all that kind of stuff to have those conversations. You want to buy a house, you want to do some big, expensive trip, whatever. It's all communication and planning. So the same thing goes, I guess, right? When there is contemplation of separation and divorce, it all makes sense.
It's like anything you do in your life. If you want to learn a new skill, you want to learn a new sport, you're going to look it up on YouTube. You're going to get yourself a coach. Maybe if you want to be like a pro tennis player, you're going to get yourself a coach, right? So you're not going to go get yourself like a professional at boat racing. You're going to get yourself a tennis coach, right? Someone who's been there, done that. It's the same thing with divorce. But we don't tend to think about that because we don't realize that coaches have so much to offer. And that's what this community is. You don't have to go to a therapist who looks at yesterday and why did you not take out the garbage? And why did you become the person you are today? You don't always have to do that. Sometimes it's just, this is where I am and this is where I want to go. And I just need help to get me there. And that's what a coach does.
Yeah. And, it's another interesting point, and this could be a completely different discussion, but we spend, I think as a society, we don't spend nearly enough time planning our relationships. And, you kind of hear that analogy. People plan so much for the wedding and don't plan at all for the marriage, right? It's just a shaky foundation to start with.
Absolutely. And that's why I say we don't know how to marry, and we certainly don't know how to divorce either. So we go in blind into the marriage, and we go even blinder out of the marriage into divorce. And so we just use our thoughts and our emotions because we are emotional humans. That's how we function.
Right. Now, I guess I just want to give you the opportunity to share where we can find you, anything that you're working on, what we can expect down the road.
Okay. So we've got about 20 coaches on the Divorce by Rose community, and we cover 4 different areas. There's emotional, physical well-being, financial, and spiritual. And for all the legal matters, like I said, you can contact us. We'll refer you to a third party that offers unlimited legal services for a fixed monthly fee of under $50 a month. So it's a really, really good plan. So you guys can go to ravitrose.com. In there, you can find access to the Divorce by Rose courses. So there's a page with Divorce by Rose. I also have my divorce blog, which is a bunch of videos that I'm always making. And the whole idea, again, is to plant seeds of thought in your mind. It's to get you thinking differently, thinking outside of the box. I know when I was getting divorced, I didn't have the help. I didn't have the support. I didn't know where to go. So I kind of just relied on my intelligence or my lack of intelligence at the time in knowing what to do next. So if you go to ravitrose.com, you'll find a whole load of information, and you'll have access to seeing all the different courses that we have. And then you could link to purchasing that and joining our community also. I have a YouTube channel at Ravit Rose, and I'm also on Facebook at Ravit Rose. So any social media, just look up Ravit Rose and I'll probably be there.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Ravit. That was a really beneficial conversation. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.